If you had walked into Vanessa's office that night, you would have seen nothing unusual. A quiet corporate floor, rows of dark computer screens, the faint hum of air conditioning. But hidden behind one of those walls was a secret that would destroy my entire life. And the worst part, I'm the one who opened it. My name is Stephen Harper. I'm 68 years old, and I run a small neighborhood grocery store that's been in my family for more than 3 decades. For most of my life, my world was simple: work, family, and my daughter Natalie. But 6 months ago, Natalie disappeared. And the truth about that night didn't begin in the forest where her car was found. It began in my wife's office. Rain hammered against my windshield as I pulled into the underground parking garage. Outside, the streets of Seattle glowed with blurred neon reflections. Red traffic lights stretched across the wet pavement like bleeding lines of color. The city looked alive, but my world had felt frozen for 6 months and 3 days. That's how long Natalie had been gone. I shut off the engine but didn't move. My hands rested on the steering wheel as memories pushed into my mind. Police flashlights cutting through the forest, search dogs barking into the dark, a detective standing in my living room saying the words no parent ever wants to hear. We're doing everything we can. They searched the woods for 3 days. They questioned every friend Natalie had. They even pulled every record from her phone. Nothing. No messages, no calls, no trace. It was like my daughter had simply stepped out of the world. A tight ache settled in my chest. Finally, I stepped out of the car and walked toward the elevator. 28 floors above me was Vanessa's office. My wife had been working late almost every night since Natalie disappeared. At first, I thought grief had swallowed her the same way it had swallowed me. But recently, small things had started bothering me. She locked her phone whenever I entered the room. She stopped asking about the investigation. And sometimes, late at night, I caught her staring at the wall like she was thinking about something she couldn't say out loud. The elevator doors slid open. Inside, the mirrored wall showed a man I barely recognized. Sunken eyes, gray stubble, a father who couldn't protect his own child. The elevator chimed softly when it reached the 28th floor. Most of the office was dark. Only a few overhead lights were still glowing, leaving long shadows across the carpet. Vanessa's office door was slightly open. "Vanessa," I called. No answer. I stepped inside. Her desk was perfectly organized, just like always. Laptop closed, chair pushed in. Everything looked normal until I noticed the pen. It rested inside a small metal holder near the edge of the desk. Gold-plated, elegant, expensive. Something about it made my stomach tighten. I walked closer, and then I saw the engraving. 2 simple words: Natalie Harper. My breath caught in my throat. Natalie had lost that pen months ago during finals week at college. She searched for it everywhere. We never found it, so why was it here, in my wife's office? Slowly, I reached for it. The pen shifted slightly in the holder when my fingers touched it, and then click. A mechanical sound echoed somewhere behind me. I froze, a low grinding noise followed. My heart slammed against my ribs as I turned around. The wall behind Vanessa's bookshelf was moving, not much, just enough for a thin line of darkness to appear. A hidden door, slowly opening. My pulse thundered in my ears, because suddenly, a terrifying thought crept into my mind. What if Natalie hadn't disappeared at all? What if someone had taken her and hidden the truth inside this building? What if the person hiding the truth was the woman I had trusted for 40 years? I stared at the opening in the wall. Then I stepped closer, because whatever waited on the other side of that door was about to change everything I believed about my family. For a few seconds, I didn't move. The wall behind Vanessa's bookshelf had opened just enough for a person to slip through. Cold air drifted out of the dark gap, not the normal air of an office building. This air smelled stale, closed, like a place that wasn't meant to be found. My first instinct was to step back, call the police, call someone. But then my eyes drifted back to the pen still in my hand. Natalie Harper. My daughter's name felt heavy engraved in the metal. and suddenly every rational thought disappeared. If Natalie had been here, if there was even the smallest chance she had been here, I had to know. I pushed the door wider. It opened silently now, sliding deeper into the wall. Behind it was a narrow staircase, concrete steps leading downward. My pulse quickened. Office buildings don't have hidden staircases behind bookshelves, not unless someone went through a lot of effort to build one. And that thought made my stomach twist, because Vanessa had worked in this building for almost 8 years. I stepped inside. The door slid shut behind me with a soft mechanical click. The sound echoed through the narrow stairwell. For a moment, the darkness felt suffocating. Then a dim light flickered on below, a single bulb, barely bright enough to see. I moved slowly down the stairs. Each step creaked faintly under my weight. The deeper I went, the stronger the strange feeling grew in my chest. Something about this place felt wrong, not abandoned, used. At the bottom of the staircase, a small room opened up, maybe 10 feet wide, concrete walls, no windows. A small metal table stood in the center, a chair beside it, and against the far wall, a narrow bed. My heart stopped. Someone had definitely been living here. A gray blanket was folded at the end of the mattress. A half-empty water bottle sat on the floor. There were even faint scuff marks near the door, like someone had been pacing back and forth. My breathing grew shallow. Who would build a hidden room under an office? And more importantly, who had been staying here? I stepped toward the table. There were a few objects resting on the metal surface. A cheap phone charger, a notebook, and a photograph. The moment I saw the picture, my chest tightened. I picked it up. It showed a young woman standing outside a coffee shop, her hair blowing slightly in the wind, a tired smile on her face. My fingers began to tremble, because the girl in the photograph was Natalie, my daughter. But that wasn't the part that made my stomach drop. The real shock was the timestamp printed in the corner of the photo. October 17, 3 days after Natalie's car had been found abandoned in the mountains. 3 days after the police told us she had likely disappeared somewhere in the forest. My mind struggled to process it. If this picture was real, then Natalie hadn't been lost in the woods. She had been alive and somewhere in the city. My pulse roared in my ears as I stared at the photo again. And that's when I noticed something else. A small reflection in the coffee shop window behind her. A blurry figure standing a few feet away, watching her. I leaned closer, trying to make out the shape. And suddenly, a terrible realization crawled through my mind. Because the outline of that person looked familiar, painfully familiar. The same height, the same posture. The figure wore a long, dark coat, the same kind Vanessa wore almost every day. My hand slowly lowered the photograph. A cold wave of dread spread through my chest, because if this picture meant what I thought it meant, then my wife hadn't just known Natalie was alive. She had been watching her, and maybe even hiding her. I turned slowly back toward the staircase, but before I could take a step, a faint electronic sound came from the corner of the room. Beep. I froze. The sound came again. Beep. My eyes moved toward the far wall, where a small security monitor suddenly flickered to life. And what appeared on the screen was the live feed from Vanessa's office upstairs. The monitor flickered once, then the image sharpened. My heart slammed against my ribs. It was Vanessa's office, the exact room I had just walked through. The same desk, the same bookshelf, the same gold pen holder sitting where I had left it. For a moment, my brain struggled to process what I was seeing. Then movement appeared on the screen. Vanessa stepped into the office. My breath caught. She looked different from the woman I had seen that morning. Her hair was pulled back tightly. Her expression was tense, focused, like someone walking into a situation they already understood. Behind her, 2 men entered the room, both wearing dark suits, both built like security. One of them closed the office door behind them. The other walked straight to the desk. My chest tightened as he placed something on the table. A phone. Even from the grainy camera feed, I recognized it instantly. Natalie's phone. My stomach dropped. The police had told us they never recovered her phone. They said it likely disappeared somewhere in the forest with her, but here it was, sitting on Vanessa's desk. My pulse roared in my ears. Vanessa picked up the phone slowly. She stared at it for several seconds. Then she spoke. The security room didn't have audio, but I could see her lips move. The man beside her responded with a short shake of his head. Vanessa's shoulders stiffened. She looked frustrated, angry even. The second man stepped toward the bookshelf, toward the exact spot where the hidden door was concealed. My heart nearly stopped. If he touched the mechanism, if he opened that wall, they would find me. A cold wave of panic spread through my body. I stepped back instinctively. The concrete floor creaked softly beneath my shoe. The sound echoed through the small hidden room. I froze. For a few terrifying seconds, nothing happened. Then the monitor showed the man pausing. He tilted his head slightly, like he had heard something. My breathing stopped completely. Vanessa said something quickly to him. The man hesitated, then stepped away from the bookshelf. My lungs finally released the breath I had been holding. But relief didn't last long, because Vanessa picked up Natalie's phone again. This time she turned the screen toward the men. Even from the monitor, I could see the faint glow of a video playing. The two men leaned closer, watching. Their expressions slowly changed, first confusion, then surprise, and finally concern. One of them said something quickly. Vanessa didn't respond. She just stared at the phone screen, completely still. And for the first time since the monitor turned on, I saw something on her face that terrified me. Fear, real fear. My mind raced. What kind of video could scare Vanessa? What could Natalie possibly have recorded? Then suddenly, the man holding the phone turned it toward the camera, for only a split second. But it was enough, because I saw the frozen frame on the screen. Natalie sitting in a dim room, looking straight into the camera, her eyes wide, terrified, and behind her someone standing in the shadows, a tall figure, face hidden. But the shape of the body, the posture, the familiar stance made my blood run cold. Because that silhouette looked exactly like me. My hand slipped from the metal table. The photograph fell to the floor. My mind spun wildly, trying to understand what I had just seen. Natalie recording a video, looking terrified. And somehow I was standing behind her. But that was impossible. I had never seen that room, never recorded that video, never stood behind my daughter like that. So how could it look exactly like me? Upstairs, Vanessa suddenly turned toward the bookshelf again, this time with a look of determination. She said something to the two men. Both of them nodded. Then the taller one stepped forward, straight toward the wall, straight toward the hidden door. And this time, he reached directly for the mechanism. The wall upstairs finished sliding open. On the monitor, I watched the tall man in the suit step toward the hidden doorway. Then he froze. His eyes narrowed as he stared down the staircase, like he had just seen something inside the darkness, something unexpected, something that shouldn't be there. His voice was too faint for me to hear through the monitor, but I could read his lips. 2 words, "He's here." A cold wave ran through my body. My heart began pounding so hard it hurt. Did he mean me? I hadn't made any noise, at least I didn't think I had. But the room suddenly felt smaller, the air thicker, like the walls themselves were closing in. Upstairs, Vanessa moved quickly to the doorway and looked down the staircase. Her face tightened, not surprised, not confused, just tense, like this was exactly what she had been expecting. My stomach twisted, because if she already knew someone might be down here, then this hidden room wasn't just a secret. It was a trap. I slowly backed away from the staircase. The last thing I wanted was to be standing at the bottom when those men came down. My eyes searched the small room again. Concrete walls, metal table, the narrow bed. No obvious exit. Panic crept into my chest. There had to be another way out. People don't build hidden rooms with only one entrance. Not unless they want whoever is inside to stay there. Upstairs, the tall man started walking down the stairs. Slow, careful, each step echoing through the concrete shaft. I could hear it now, the faint creak of his shoes on the metal steps. My pulse raced, 10 steps above, then 8, then 6. My breathing became shallow. I scanned the walls again. That's when I noticed something strange. Behind the bed, the concrete looked slightly different. The texture was smoother, almost like a panel. I stepped closer, ran my hand along the surface. There, a thin seam in the wall, barely visible. My fingers searched desperately until they found a small indentation, a hidden latch. Upstairs, the man paused halfway down the stairs. I heard him whisper something. The second man started descending behind him. They were coming faster now. I pressed the latch. Nothing happened. My heart slammed in my chest. I pushed harder, still nothing. Then I remembered the pen still clutched in my hand. Natalie's pen. The mechanism upstairs had reacted when I touched it. Maybe this entire system worked the same way. I quickly slid the pen into the indentation. For half a second, nothing happened. Then, click. A quiet mechanical sound echoed inside the wall. The panel shifted slightly. A narrow door opened just enough to slip through. Relief flooded my body, but it lasted less than a second, because at that exact moment, the man on the staircase reached the bottom step. I heard his shoes touch the concrete floor behind me. "Don't move." His voice was calm, cold. I slowly turned around. The tall man stood only a few feet away, the second man just behind him, both staring directly at me. But their expressions weren't angry, they weren't even surprised, they looked concerned. The tall man raised his hand slowly, like he was approaching a frightened animal. "Mr. Harper," he said quietly, "how did you find this room?" My mind spun. They knew my name. Before I could answer, the second man glanced toward the photograph lying on the floor. His expression darkened. Then he looked back at me. "You weren't supposed to see that." A chill ran down my spine. "See what?" I asked. The two men exchanged a glance. Then the tall one sighed and said something that made my blood run cold. "Your daughter isn't missing, Mr. Harper." He paused. "And the truth about her disappearance." His eyes shifted briefly toward the monitor, where Vanessa was still standing upstairs, "is far worse than you think." Natalie was running. The security monitor flickered as the video played. The footage was shaky, like it had been recorded on a phone while moving. A dim hallway stretched behind her, concrete walls, fluorescent lights flickering overhead. My heart slammed against my ribs. "Natalie," I whispered. Her breathing echoed through the recording, fast, panicked. She looked over her shoulder, like someone was chasing her. Then suddenly she turned the camera toward her face. Her eyes were wide. Terrified, "Dad, if you're seeing this," her voice shook. "They're lying to you." My entire body went cold. Behind me, the two men in suits stared at the monitor just as intensely as I did. Natalie kept running. The camera bounced violently. Then she whispered something that made my chest tight. "Mom knows." The room felt suddenly silent. The tall man beside me cursed under his breath. Upstairs, on the other screen, Vanessa was still standing in her office, watching. Natalie reached the end of the hallway. A metal door appeared in front of her. She shoved it open. Bright light flooded the camera. For a moment the screen went completely white. Then the video cut. Static filled the monitor. My hands trembled. "What does that mean?" I demanded. The two men exchanged a look. The taller one rubbed his forehead slowly. "You weren't supposed to see that yet," he said quietly. "Yet," I repeated. Before he could answer, footsteps echoed from the staircase. Vanessa was coming down. Vanessa stopped at the bottom step. Her eyes locked onto mine. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. 6 months of grief, 6 months of silence, 6 months of unanswered questions, all standing in the same small room. "You shouldn't be here, Stephen," she said quietly. My chest tightened. "You knew," I said. My voice sounded unfamiliar, rough. "You knew Natalie was alive." Vanessa didn't deny it. That hurt more than if she had. She looked toward the monitor where the video had stopped. "I was trying to protect you," she said. Anger surged through me. "Protect me," I snapped. "Our daughter disappeared." "She didn't disappear," Vanessa said sharply. "She ran." The room went silent. My mind struggled to understand. "Ran from what?" I asked. Vanessa hesitated. Then she looked at the two men beside me. "They deserve to know now," she said. The tall man nodded slowly. Then he turned toward me. "Mr. Harper," he said, "your daughter discovered something she wasn't supposed to." The tall man walked toward the metal table. He picked up the photograph. "You saw this," he said. I nodded slowly. "That picture was taken by a surveillance team," he continued. "She had already broken into the building by then." My stomach dropped. "Natalie broke in here," Vanessa nodded. "She had been investigating something online," she said. "She thought this company was hiding illegal activity." "What kind of activity?" I asked. The two men exchanged another look. Then the tall one answered, "Human experimentation." The words hit me like a punch. "That's impossible," I said. "I work here," Vanessa replied quietly. "I know." The room felt colder. Natalie had been investigating her own mother's company, and somehow she had found something real. The tall man rewound the video. Natalie running down the hallway appeared again. "This footage came from a lab floor," he said, "a restricted level of the building." My heart pounded. "What did she see down there?" I asked. Vanessa looked away. The tall man answered, "People." My stomach twisted. "People who shouldn't have been there." Natalie had recorded it, everything, the experiments, the rooms, the evidence. "That's why someone started chasing her," Vanessa said quietly. "They couldn't let that footage leave the building." My hands curled into fists. "Who?" I demanded. The room fell silent again, because everyone already knew the answer. The tall man opened another file on the monitor. New footage appeared. Security camera angle, a corridor, Natalie running through it. Then another figure stepped into view behind her. My breath stopped. It wasn't a stranger, it wasn't security, it was a woman, walking calmly down the hallway. Vanessa. My eyes slowly turned toward my wife. She didn't look away. "She thought I was helping her," Vanessa whispered. The words barely left her lips. "She trusted me." My chest tightened painfully. "But you weren't helping her," I said. Vanessa shook her head slowly. "I was trying to stop her." The tall man switched to the final video clip. Natalie burst through a metal exit door. Cold night air filled the screen. She stumbled into an alley behind the building. Rain was pouring. Neon lights reflected on the pavement. The same night her car had been found abandoned. Natalie turned the camera toward herself again. Her face was pale, exhausted, but determined. "If something happens to me," she whispered to the camera, "don't believe them." She looked back toward the building, then added something that made my heart stop. "Because the person running this place," she hesitated, like she couldn't believe the words herself, "is someone in our family." The video ended. The room fell silent. My mind spun wildly. Family? The only people Natalie trusted were Vanessa and me. Slowly, I looked at my wife, but she was already staring at the two men in suits with fear in her eyes, because suddenly, heavy footsteps echoed from the staircase above. More people were coming down, and whoever they weren't here to talk. Heavy footsteps echoed down the staircase. Not one person, several. The sound bounced off the concrete walls like distant thunder. Everyone in the room went still. The two men beside me immediately reached inside their jackets. Not weapons, radios. The taller one spoke quietly into the device. "They're early." Vanessa's face tightened. "How many?" she asked. The man listened for a second. 4, maybe 5. My pulse quickened. "Who are they?" I asked. Vanessa didn't answer. Instead, she turned toward me with urgency. "Stephen, listen carefully," she said. "You cannot let them find you down here." "Why?" I demanded. But before she could answer, a voice echoed from the top of the stairs. "Security sweep." The tone was sharp, official, but something about it felt wrong. The tall man beside me whispered quietly, "That's not security." Vanessa nodded grimly. "They're here for the footage." My stomach dropped. Natalie's recordings, the experiments. Everything she had discovered. The footsteps grew closer. Vanessa grabbed my arm suddenly. "Come with me." She pulled me toward the narrow wall panel I had opened earlier, the hidden exit. "You knew about this door," I said. Vanessa hesitated, then nodded, "Yes." The admission felt like a knife in my chest. "Later," she whispered urgently. "We don't have time now." Behind us, the footsteps were almost halfway down the staircase. The tall man turned toward us. "Go," he said. "We'll slow them down." Vanessa pulled me through the narrow opening. The panel slid shut just as the first stranger reached the bottom step, and seconds later, a gunshot echoed through the concrete room. The passage behind the wall was narrow, bare concrete, dim emergency lights glowing along the ceiling. Vanessa moved quickly, like she knew the route by memory. "You've been down here before," I said breathlessly. She didn't slow down. "Yes." The corridor stretched ahead of us, long, silent. "How many secret tunnels does this place have?" I asked. "Enough," she replied. Her voice carried a weight I didn't understand. Behind us, muffled shouts echoed through the walls. The men upstairs had found the hidden room. Vanessa suddenly turned a corner. Another staircase appeared, leading upward this time. "Where does this go?" I asked. "The parking structure." Relief flickered through me. "We can leave." Vanessa stopped, slowly, then turned toward me. Her expression was grim. "No," she said. "We can't." Rain poured outside the garage exit. Water dripped from the concrete ceiling. Vanessa and I crouched in the shadows near the top of the stairs. 3 SUVs idled near the loading bay. Their headlights cut through the darkness. 4 men stood nearby, dressed in identical black jackets. One of them held a familiar object in his hand, a worn blue backpack. My chest tightened instantly. "Natalie's," I whispered. Vanessa nodded slowly. "They must have found it." "How?" She didn't answer. Instead, she studied the men carefully. "They're not supposed to be here yet." "Who are they?" I asked again. Vanessa's voice dropped to a whisper. "The people who funded the experiments." My stomach twisted. And suddenly Natalie's last words echoed in my mind again. "Someone in our family." Vanessa looked directly into my eyes. "There's something you need to understand," she said quietly. "Natalie wasn't just investigating the company." I frowned. "What do you mean?" Vanessa hesitated. Rain echoed loudly in the garage. Then she said something I never expected to hear. She was one of their subjects. The words knocked the air out of my lungs. "That's impossible," I said. But Vanessa's expression didn't change. "They started testing years ago," she explained. "Cognitive enhancement research." My mind struggled to process the idea. "You're telling me our daughter was part of some experiment?" Vanessa nodded slowly. "She volunteered." The world tilted slightly around me. Natalie, my daughter, had secretly joined an experimental research program without telling us. Vanessa leaned against the wall. "She joined the program to expose it," she said. The pieces began slowly falling together. Natalie knew something illegal was happening. Vanessa nodded. "She pretended to be a participant." My pulse quickened. And then she started collecting evidence. The hidden videos, the recordings, the lab footage, everything suddenly made sense. "But she went too deep," Vanessa said quietly. "They realized what she was doing." The memory of Natalie running through the hallway flashed in my mind again. "They started hunting her. And that's when she ran," I said. Vanessa nodded. "Yes, but that wasn't the end." Vanessa pulled a small flash drive from her pocket. "This is what Natalie risked her life for," she said. My hands trembled as she placed it in my palm. "What is it?" "Proof." The word echoed in the quiet corridor. "Everything the company did, experiments, subjects." "Yes," her voice sounded quiet, almost defeated. "The company has been running experimental trials for years," she said. "Trials for what?" "Human cognitive acceleration." I frowned. "In plain English." Vanessa glanced at me. "They were trying to make people think faster." "How much faster?" She stopped walking, then turned toward me. 3 times faster than a normal brain." I shook my head immediately. "That's impossible." Vanessa's expression didn't change. "That's exactly what most of the researchers said." We continued down the corridor. My thoughts raced. "Where does Natalie fit into this?" Vanessa's answer came quietly. "She volunteered." The words didn't make sense. "Natalie would never." "She wasn't volunteering for the experiment," Vanessa interrupted. "She was investigating it." Vanessa leaned against the concrete wall. "She started asking questions," she said. "At first, the researchers thought she was just curious. But she kept digging." My pulse quickened. "She accessed internal files," Vanessa continued. "Security footage, lab reports, financial records. Every new detail made my chest feel heavier. She thought the company was hiding illegal testing. And was it? I asked. Vanessa didn't answer right away. Instead, she closed her eyes briefly. Yes, the word echoed in the corridor. What kind of testing? I asked quietly. Vanessa looked directly at me. Human trials that never received approval. A cold chill ran through me. And Natalie recorded it. Vanessa nodded slowly. She recorded everything. The hidden videos, the footage we had already seen. It all suddenly made sense. But she made one mistake, Vanessa added. What mistake? She discovered who was funding the project. We reached another staircase. Cold air drifted upward from the lower levels. Who was funding it? I asked. Vanessa hesitated. Then she said a name I never expected. Daniel. My mind went blank. My brother, Vanessa nodded. Daniel Harper. Memories flashed through my mind. Daniel had always been the ambitious one, the genius, the billionaire biotech investor. But the idea that he was behind something like this felt impossible. He lives in Europe, I said. Vanessa shook her head slowly. He's been here more often than you think. The words sent a chill down my spine. Natalie's last message suddenly echoed in my memory again. Someone in our family. Vanessa and I moved slowly down the stairs. The air grew colder the deeper we went. At the bottom, a long corridor stretched in front of us. Glass walls, dim blue lights, machines humming quietly behind sealed lab doors. The place felt sterile, too clean, like a hospital built for secrets. My heart pounded as I stepped forward. This is where Natalie ran, I whispered. Vanessa nodded. Yes. We walked carefully down the hallway. Then Vanessa suddenly grabbed my arm. Stephen, look. I followed her gaze. At the far end of the corridor stood a glass chamber. Inside the room was a single chair, and someone sitting in it. My breath caught instantly. Long dark hair, thin shoulders, head lowered. Natalie, I whispered. Natalie stood slowly inside the glass room. For a moment, relief flooded my chest. She was alive. But the closer I looked, the stranger everything felt. Her movements were precise, controlled, almost mechanical. She stepped toward the glass. Her eyes locked onto mine. They looked sharper somehow, more focused, like her mind was processing 10 things at once. Vanessa spoke quietly beside me. The experiment changed her. Natalie placed her hand against the glass wall. Dad, she said softly. My heart nearly broke hearing her voice. Natalie, we're getting you out of here. For a second, she didn't respond. Then her gaze shifted toward the far end of the corridor, like she had noticed something we couldn't see. There are 4 people approaching, she said calmly. What? I asked. Natalie continued speaking. They're coming from the elevator. My pulse quickened. How do you know that? Natalie didn't answer. She just kept watching the hallway, and that's when slow clapping echoed behind us. Vanessa and I turned around. A man stepped out of the shadows, tall, confident, smiling like he had been expecting us. My stomach dropped instantly. Daniel Harper, my brother. Stephen, he said calmly. Welcome to the future. Daniel Harper stood at the end of the corridor with his hands calmly folded behind his back. The blue lab lights reflected off the glass walls around him, making the entire hallway feel colder. For a few seconds, I couldn't move. Daniel looked exactly the same as the last time I had seen him at a family dinner 2 years ago. Same calm smile, same confident posture, but something in his eyes felt different now, calculated, controlled. Stephen, he said almost warmly, it's been a long time. My fists tightened. You did this, I said. Daniel tilted his head slightly. That depends on what you think this is. Behind the glass wall, Natalie slowly stepped closer. Her movements were precise, almost too precise, like every motion had been calculated in advance. Vanessa stepped in front of me. You shouldn't be here, Daniel. Daniel smiled faintly. And yet, here I am. He looked toward the glass room where Natalie stood watching us. You see, Stephen, progress always scares people at first. Progress, I snapped. You kidnapped my daughter, Daniel chuckled softly. No, he raised one finger. Your daughter volunteered. The words echoed in the corridor. You're lying, I said. Daniel's eyes shifted briefly toward Natalie. Am I? Natalie didn't react. She just watched us quietly from behind the glass. Daniel continued, "Your daughter is the most successful cognitive enhancement subject we've ever had." My stomach twisted. "Subject?" Daniel's voice remained calm. "Her brain now processes information nearly 3 times faster than a normal human mind." I shook my head. "You're insane," Daniel sighed. "That's exactly what people said about electricity once." For a moment, no one spoke. Then Daniel stepped slightly closer. "Do you know what your daughter can do now?" My pulse pounded in my ears. "What?" Daniel gestured toward the glass. "Ask her." Natalie looked directly at me through the glass wall. Her expression was calm, too calm. "Dad," she said softly. Her voice came through the lab speakers. For a second, emotion flooded through me. "Natalie, are you okay?" She tilted her head slightly. "Yes." But the way she said it felt different, precise, measured. Daniel folded his arms. "Go ahead," he said. "Show him." Natalie's eyes moved slowly around the lab. Then she spoke again. "There are 6 cameras in this corridor." I blinked. She continued, "2 behind you, 1 above the stairwell, 3 along the ceiling." Daniel smiled. She mapped the entire security system in under 12 seconds. Natalie didn't react to the compliment. Instead, she looked back at me. "There are also 4 armed personnel approaching from the elevator shaft." My heart skipped. "What?" Daniel checked his watch. 30 seconds, Natalie added calmly. Daniel nodded approvingly. "Her predictive analysis is extremely accurate." Vanessa stepped closer to the glass. "Natalie, listen to me." Natalie's eyes shifted to her mother. "Mom, do you want to leave this place?" Natalie hesitated. For the first time, a flicker of emotion crossed her face. "Yes," Daniel sighed. "That's unfortunate." Then he pressed a small button on the wall beside him. Red lights immediately flashed across the corridor. Alarms began echoing through the lab. "Because unfortunately," Daniel said calmly, "the investors arriving upstairs have no intention of letting her leave." Daniel Harper stood in the corridor like he owned the building, which in a way he probably did. The blue lab lights reflected off the glass walls around us, giving everything a cold, artificial glow. For several seconds I couldn't speak. My younger brother looked exactly the same as he had at our last family dinner. Calm, confident, perfectly dressed, but the smile on his face now felt different, controlled, predatory. "Stephen," Daniel said casually, "it's good to see you." My fists tightened. "You're behind this." Daniel tilted his head slightly. "That depends on what you think this is." Behind the glass chamber, Natalie stood silently watching us. Her eyes moved quickly between every person in the corridor, like she was calculating something. Daniel glanced at her and smiled proudly. "Remarkable, isn't she?" "You kidnapped her," I said. "No," Daniel replied calmly. "She volunteered." "That's a lie," Daniel sighed. "Stephen, Natalie joined the program willingly. She wanted to see what the human brain was capable of." Vanessa stepped forward. "She joined to expose you." Daniel's eyes shifted to her. "True," he admitted. "But that doesn't change the results." He gestured toward the glass chamber. "Your daughter is the most successful cognitive enhancement subject we've ever produced." My stomach twisted hearing him say the word produced. "She's not a subject," I said. "She's my daughter." Daniel looked almost amused. "Both can be true." Natalie's voice came through the lab speakers. Calm, clear. "Uncle Daniel," she said. Daniel looked at her. "Yes, there are 3 security teams moving toward this corridor." The entire hallway went quiet. Daniel frowned slightly. "How do you know that?" Natalie answered instantly. "I accessed the internal camera network." Daniel's eyebrows lifted. "That system is encrypted." Natalie shrugged faintly. "Not anymore." Vanessa stared at her in disbelief. "You hacked the building." Natalie's eyes moved rapidly around the hallway again. "They'll be here in 20 seconds." Daniel checked his watch. Then he smiled again. "Well, that's inconvenient." My heart was racing. "What's happening?" Natalie looked directly at me. "Dad, you need to leave this level." "Not without you." Her expression softened for a brief moment. "Trust me." Daniel slowly folded his arms. "You see the problem," he said. Her brain is processing information at speeds none of us can fully predict. Natalie ignored him. Instead, she looked toward the glass door of the chamber. 5 seconds. A quiet mechanical sound echoed. The lock on the chamber door disengaged. Daniel's smile disappeared completely. You shouldn't be able to do that. Natalie stepped out of the chamber. Red lights suddenly flashed across the hallway. A loud alarm began echoing through the lab level. Containment breach, a robotic voice announced. Daniel cursed quietly. Well, this escalated quickly. Natalie grabbed my arm. Dad, we need to move. Where? Service tunnel. Vanessa looked shocked. How do you know about that? Natalie answered immediately. I mapped the building while we were talking. My mind struggled to keep up. Daniel stepped forward suddenly. You're not leaving. Natalie turned toward him calmly. You can't stop us. Daniel smiled faintly. Maybe not. Then he pressed a button on the wall. Heavy metal doors slammed shut at both ends of the corridor, sealing us inside. Daniel walked slowly toward us, completely calm. You see, Stephen, the investors didn't fund this project just to make people smarter. Then what was the point? I demanded. Daniel looked at Natalie. They wanted to see how intelligence changes power. Natalie's expression hardened. You're studying control, Daniel nodded. Exactly. Vanessa stepped closer to me. Daniel, stop this. But Daniel ignored her. He kept watching Natalie. You're the proof that human evolution can be accelerated. Natalie's voice remained steady. And you're the reason it should never happen. Daniel chuckled softly. That's the problem with geniuses. What? They always think they know better. Natalie suddenly turned toward the sealed corridor door. 3 armed personnel behind that wall. My pulse quickened. How long? 10 seconds. Daniel smiled again. Perfect timing. Natalie closed her eyes briefly, like she was focusing. The lights in the corridor flickered once, then twice. Daniel's smile faded. What are you doing? Natalie didn't answer. She just opened her eyes again. 3, 2, the lights went out. Total darkness swallowed the corridor. The alarm systems shut off instantly. Somewhere down the hallway, someone shouted. Daniel's voice cut through the darkness. Find them, Natalie grabbed my hand. Now we run. The service tunnel was narrow and cold. Water dripped from old pipes overhead. Natalie moved through the darkness with surprising confidence. How can you see? I asked. I memorized the layout, she replied. Vanessa followed close behind us. My God, Natalie suddenly stopped. Wait, my heart skipped. What is it? She listened carefully. 2 guards ahead. Vanessa whispered nervously. Can we go another way? Natalie shook her head. No time. Then she did something unexpected. She picked up a loose metal pipe from the floor and handed it to me. Dad, she said quietly, you're going to have to trust me. The sound exploded through the tunnel like thunder. Natalie froze. Vanessa grabbed my arm. What was that? Natalie tilted her head slightly, listening. 2 guards, she said quietly. One fired his weapon. My heart slammed against my ribs. Are they coming this way? Natalie nodded once. Yes. The tunnel suddenly felt much smaller. Water dripped from the pipes above us. The sound echoed like a countdown. Natalie looked directly at me. Dad, I tightened my grip on the metal pipe she'd given me. You said to trust you. Her eyes softened for just a second. Good. Footsteps approached from the darkness ahead, heavy, fast. 2 men appeared around the corner, flashlights cutting through the black tunnel. Stop, one of them shouted. Natalie moved instantly. Now, the guard raised his gun, but the narrow tunnel worked against him. I swung the pipe hard. The metal connected with his wrist. The gun clattered to the ground. The second guard lunged forward. Vanessa shoved a loose crate into his legs. He crashed against the wall. Natalie kicked the fallen gun away. Keep moving, she said calmly. My hands were shaking. What about them? They'll recover in about 90 seconds. How do you know that? Natalie didn't answer. She just started running again. Natalie stared down the tunnel. Her breathing slowed. What is it? I asked. She didn't respond right away. Then she whispered something that made my stomach drop. Daniel predicted this. Vanessa frowned. What do you mean? Natalie turned slowly. The tunnel exits are sealed. My chest tightened. All of them, Natalie nodded. Yes, Vanessa stepped closer. Then we're trapped. Natalie shook her head. No, she pointed upward. There's one route Daniel probably didn't expect. I followed her gaze. An old maintenance ladder led up into darkness. Where does that go? I asked. Natalie's voice was quiet. The server room. Vanessa blinked. Why would we go there? Natalie's eyes sharpened. Because that's where the evidence is. The hatch opened into a cold, humming chamber. Tall metal racks filled the room. Thousands of blinking lights. Data servers. Rows and rows of them. Vanessa looked stunned. This is the entire research archive. Natalie stepped toward the central console. If we expose this, the entire company collapses. My heart pounded. Then do it. Natalie started typing rapidly. Her fingers moved faster than I could follow. Lines of code flashed across the screen. Vanessa whispered beside me. She's thinking faster than any human should. Suddenly, Natalie stopped typing. Her face tightened. He's here, a slow clap echoed from the doorway. Daniel stepped into the room, still calm, still smiling. I knew you'd come here. My stomach turned. How? Daniel shrugged. Because I taught you how to think. Natalie stood between him and the console. You taught me how to predict you, Daniel chuckled. That's adorable. Daniel held up a small remote device. Vanessa immediately recognized it. No, Daniel smiled. Oh yes. Natalie's eyes narrowed. What is it? I asked. Vanessa's voice trembled. It's a neural failsafe. My heart skipped. What does that mean? Daniel answered casually. It means Natalie's brain still belongs to this program. Natalie stared at the remote. You wouldn't. Daniel's smile widened. Try me, my chest tightened. What does it do? Daniel's voice became colder. It shuts the experiment down. Natalie's breathing slowed. You're bluffing. Daniel tilted his head. Would you like to test that theory? Daniel frowned. What's funny? Natalie stepped slightly aside from the console. You're still thinking 3 moves ahead. Daniel nodded. Correct. Natalie shook her head slowly. But I'm thinking 30. For the first time, Daniel's expression shifted. Natalie turned the monitor toward him. While you were talking, I uploaded the entire research database. Daniel's smile vanished. To where? Natalie answered calmly. Every major news network in the country. Vanessa gasped. You did what? Natalie's voice stayed steady. In 20 seconds, the story becomes public. Daniel looked genuinely shocked. You're bluffing. Natalie pointed to the countdown timer on the screen. 15 seconds. Daniel's hand tightened around the remote. You're destroying billions of dollars of research. Natalie replied softly. No, I'm exposing it. The remote clicked. Vanessa screamed. Natalie collapsed to her knees. My heart stopped. Natalie, Daniel watched calmly. Evolution has casualties. But then something unexpected happened. Natalie slowly looked up, still conscious. Daniel stared in disbelief. That's impossible. Natalie smiled weakly. You forgot something, Daniel whispered. What? Natalie pointed to the server rack behind him. I already disabled the failsafe. Daniel turned toward the screen. The countdown hit 0. Sirens echoed outside the building, police vehicles, emergency lights flashing through the windows. Vanessa grabbed Natalie. You did it. Natalie leaned weakly against her. Daniel stood frozen, his empire collapsing in real time. I stepped toward him. Was it worth it? Daniel didn't answer. For the first time in my life, my brilliant younger brother looked small, defeated. Footsteps thundered down the hallway. Police officers stormed the server room. Hands where we can see them. Daniel slowly raised his hands. Natalie looked at me. Dad, I held her tightly. You're safe. For the first time in 7 years, I believed it. 3 months later, the story dominated every news network in America. Illegal human experiments, corporate conspiracies, billions in lawsuits. Daniel Harper disappeared into federal custody. Vanessa testified against the company. And Natalie tried to live a normal life again. But sometimes late at night, I would see her staring at something invisible, calculating, thinking, faster than anyone else. One evening, she looked at me quietly. Dad, yes, what if this is just the beginning? I didn't have an answer, because deep down, I feared she might be right.